Jennifer, what are you doing? Playing Legos? What did the lockdown do to you?
I'm okay. These are not only Legos, they are symbols of London.
Oh.
The double-deck bus. Actually, I'm planning my trip to London.
Trip to London? When? The whole world is still under the threat of COVID-19.
I know, but a few days ago, the CECC has lowered the epidemic alert from level 3 to level 2. And since more and more people are getting vaccinated, including you and me, I believe that the day will come soon.
Hopefully. Then I'd love to go with you to London. It's on my must-visit list. I've seen the introduction on TV. It's a traveler-friendly city. It's easy to go around in town, isn't it?
Yes, London is such a convenient city with well-developed public transportation system. Joyce, if you want to look around in London, any idea about what public transportation you can take?
Well, okay, let me guess. There are buses, MRTs, and trains. Am I right?
You are almost right, except the MRT. In the UK, people don't say MRT, which is what we call in Taiwan. In London, they call it Underground, which is the Underground Electric Railway System. And in addition to what we've mentioned, there are electric vehicles running underground, transporting people. These electric vehicles need to go along with metal tracks. They are called trams, which is a light rail system. Thanks to those public transport systems, it's so easy to get around when you are in London. You can pay visits to a lot of places, such as Buckingham Palace, the Tower of London, the British Museum, and the Big Ben. London has an extensive and developed transport network.
I see. Sounds like moving around in London is easy. But how about the transportation fares? Does it cost a lot to travel around in London?
Not really. London Transit offers a variety of fare payment methods for tourist convenience. All you need to do is to check the fare table and find the option that suits you.
That's really friendly to the visitors and the local residents alike.
You actually pointed out one of the advantages of public transport system in London. Because of its convenience and the cheap fares, people there prefer to take public transportations, which also make the city go greener. But by taking public transportation more often, there will be less air pollution, better air quality, and healthier citizens. Therefore, according to statistics in London, you can see that with more people taking public transport, the air quality becomes better, and the whole city of London can be more sustainable.
Wow, from what you say, public transportation systems in London have plenty of benefits. And I should visit there sometimes to see what it's like there.
However, though many people in London choose to take public transportation, there are still something that the city government can do to make London a greener city. For example, the mayor is spending more than £300 million to transform London's bus fleet by retrofitting thousands of buses and committing to phase out pure diesel double-deck buses since 2018. Since 2020, all single-deck buses have emitted zero exhaust emissions by 2037. The latest, all the 9,200 buses across London will be zero emission.
Zero emission? That sounds unbelievable. What a determined mayor. I believe with all the efforts both the government and residents put, London is sure to become a green and sustainable city in the near future. And the locals will lead a healthy life.
Exactly. Okay, let's think about where we will visit when we go to London.
在本段的课程中 ，Jennifer 介绍了英国超级便利的大众运输系统。大家还记得有哪些交通工具吗？有四通八达的地铁 （Underground）， 行驶于路面的轻轨电车 （Tram）， 还有让英国公车声名大噪、远近驰名的双层巴士 （Double Deck Bus）。Jennifer 特别介绍了交通系统的原因是，它们不仅价格便宜，还可以有效促进观光业。更重要的是，它们靠电力驱动，不会排放废气，让城市更干净了。By taking public transportation more often, there will be less air pollution, better air quality, and healthier citizens. 事实上，这些多元面貌的交通工具，在不少故事发生在现代英国的电影当中都会出现。下一次同学看到时，可以回想一下他们的英文说法，以及他们对于城市环境的贡献哦。在下一段的课程中 ，Joyce 要带我们搭乘大众运输游高雄去。
Speaking of the trams in London, Jennifer, have you ever tried the new light rail system in Kaohsiung?
Of course! A few months ago, a friend of mine from Taipei came to visit me. We took the light rail from Dreamo Station to Dai Peier Station. Actually, it connects the major tourist attractions in one line. It's really convenient.
Yes, as a local Kaohsiung citizen, I really feel proud of the light rail system. Kaohsiung is the first city in Taiwan to launch a light rail system, LRT system. There are 37 stations in total. The loop line of LRT is to facilitate the exploration of Kaohsiung. What's in operation now is the segment from Lizinei Station to Hamaxing Station. Passengers may board or alight at any station along this segment.
Yes, and the tickets are available at automatic ticket vending machines on the platform at each station.
Or you can simply use iPass card or Easy Card, both of which are very handy cards to replace cash. They can be used in public transport such as MRT, LRT, bus station, and even convenience stores, malls, etc.
Wow, it sounds so convenient. I have my own iPass card. When I take MRT, I always use it to tap it and tap out.
Currently, with two mass rapid transit lines, one light rail transit line, and regular buses routes, Kaohsiung is on its way to cultivate an extensive public transportation network. The whole network will be further enhanced with the construction of the third MRT route by the end of 2022 and the completion of LRT by 2023.
Yes, that's what people in Kaohsiung, like you and me, are expecting. Well-developed public transport accelerates economic growth and enhances the cityscape while reducing car accidents and traffic congestions. But Joyce, how about the green part in Kaohsiung? Is the city government working on the environmental protection like the London government do?
Sure. Our government is transforming our transportation system and the mobility patterns to become a more sustainable, low carbon, and less automobile dependent by offering more public transportation, promoting walking, cycling, and shared mobility. There are U-Bike stations everywhere in Kaohsiung and the GoShare system.
The GoShare system?
Yes, the GoShare system. The GoShare system provides 700 electric scooters for locals and visitors to get around the city. You can see it near MRT stations or other major transportation hubs. There's one of the measures that Kaohsiung government takes to ensure Kaohsiung an eco-mobile city.
Wow, we are really on the way to an eco-mobile city.
One more. By 2030, all the city buses will be electric.
Just like what they are doing in London.
Yes, just like London. And you know what, Jennifer? There's one that London and Kaohsiung have in common.
What's that? There are many similarities between Kaohsiung and London. You are talking about?
Of course, about the transportation part and the ferries. London and Kaohsiung both offer ferry services.
Oh, the ferries. I love taking ferries from Kaohsiung Port Warehouse number 2 to Chijing Island. The wind and the scenery along the ride are really relaxing. Joyce, why don't we have a ferry ride now?
Now?
Since CEEZ has lowered the epidemic alert level to level 2.
Well, Jennifer, though we are at level 2 alert now and we've got vaccinated, I still don't think it's a good idea or a good time to take ferry. Why don't we stay home and continue to plan our London trip?
Okay, I can wait. Let's make plans for London trip. London, I'm coming!
Wait, before we make plans, let's enjoy the typical British afternoon tea first.
Okay.
这段课程中，高雄通 Joyce 告诉 Jennifer， 背山面海、位于特殊地理位置的高雄，其实也和英国一样，发展出方便的大众交通运输，像是公车、捷运、自行车及渡轮。为了连接各个景点，高雄捷运和轻轨设计的方向也略有不同。The loop line of LRT is to facilitate the exploration of Kaohsiung. 有别于环状设计了 light rail system，MRT 采用的是十字形的路线 ，LRT 采用的则是环状路线，与地下化的火车形成网络，结合自行车道及绿意盎然的绿廊，让人的活动与自然共存。除此之外，因为两座城市发展的原则都是 convenient and green， 兼顾生活便利与环境保护，所以在今天的课程当中，同学们才会一直提到 sustainable 以及 sustainability 这两个字。
This scene opens with Jennifer playing with some toy cars. Joyce is wondering what Jennifer is doing, and so she asks her what she's doing and why she's playing all alone. She wants to know if she can join Jennifer. Jennifer explains that she's not playing, but she is actually planning her trip to London when the travel restrictions are lifted. She also says that she has been to London before, but she would love to visit it again. She gives her reasons, stating that London has good public transportation. Joyce then asks Jennifer what the public transportation in London is. Joyce then proceeds to tell her her answers, one of which is the MRT. Jennifer says no, they don't call it the MRT in the UK. They call it the Metro. And that's for the ones that run under the ground. The ones running above ground are called trams, and both are easy to use. Jennifer then says that you can visit all of the hot tourist spots in London, such as Buckingham Palace, the Tower of London, the British Museum, and Big Ben. Joyce is interested in this, and she thinks it's convenient and inquires about the fees. She wonders if it's expensive. Jennifer says that it's not really expensive, and there are various ways to pay. Joyce then says how that's good for both the tourists and the people of London. Jennifer then says that there are many advantages to public transportation. She says how it's convenient, and it's cheap, and people prefer to take public transport. And it also makes the city greener and the air quality better. Joyce agrees about all these benefits and thinks that she should visit London sometime. Jennifer says how even though the public transport is good, there are still some things that the city is doing to make it more of a greener city. She says how the mayor is spending £300 million to transport all the buses so that there won't be any more diesel fuel buses, and that since 2020 all single-deck buses have had no exhaust emissions. She also says that by 2037 all the newest buses in London will have zero emissions. Joyce is impressed and says how this will lead to healthier lives for all Londoners. Jennifer then says they should discuss where they will go when they're in London. Joyce then says that considering they're talking about the trams in London, she asks Jennifer if she's ever tried the new light rail system in Kaohsiung. Jennifer replies that of course she has. A few months ago, her friend came from Taipei and they both took the light rail to various tourist attractions in the city and how convenient it is. Joyce agrees and says how proud she is of the light rail and explains how it's the first light rail in Taiwan and how there are 37 stations in total and it loops around the city. Jennifer says that there are tickets available at each station from vending machines on the platforms. Joyce says that you can also use your iPass card or Easy Card. These cards are intended to replace cash, and these cards can also be used on the MRT, buses, and in convenience stores and many shops and malls. Jennifer says how she has her own iPass card and shows it to Joyce. She uses it to tap in and tap out. Jennifer says how there are 2 MRT lines, 1 light rail transit line, as well as the regular bus routes, and how Kaohsiung is on its way to an extensive public transportation network with other MRT lines being constructed at the end of 2022, and hopefully being completed by the end of 2023. Jennifer agrees and says that this is what they are expecting, and that good public transportation is good for the city because the city can make more money and it's also better for the people and for driving. Jennifer then asks if Kaohsiung is doing the same as London, in that it's trying to go green and be environmentally friendly. Joyce says yes, and explains the various ways that Kaohsiung is trying to go green by transforming the public transport to be more environmentally friendly and by promoting walking and cycling. She goes on to mention U-bike stations and the GoShare system. Jennifer doesn't know about the GoShare system and asks about it. Joyce explains to Jennifer that the GoShare system provides 700 electric scooters for people to use around the city and that you can see them around the city at major transportation locations and also MRT stations. Jennifer then says that Kaohsiung is really on its way to becoming an eco-mobile city. Joyce wants to add one more thing. She notes how by the end of 2030, all the city buses will be electric. Jennifer says, just like what they're doing in London. Joyce agrees. And then she asks Jennifer if she knows what's one more thing that London and Kaohsiung have in common. Jennifer says there are many similarities and wants to know which one she's talking about. Joyce says the transportation, of course, and she mentions the ferries. Both cities offer ferry services. Jennifer says she loves taking ferries from Kaohsiung Port to Qijin. She says that it is very relaxing. She asks Joyce if she wants to go for a ferry ride now since the CECC has lowered the epidemic alert to level 2. Joyce tells Jennifer that it's probably not a good idea, even though it's at level 2 alert, and they both have been vaccinated. She asks if she would rather stay home and continue to plan the trip to London. Jennifer says that she can't wait and they should continue to plan their trip to London.